Okay, welcome to Book 4. We're going to begin with Dido as our implied subject of the verb ducit, to lead, taking Aeneas as its direct object. And then we'll separate two different prepositional phrases. First one we'll translate as with herself, secum. And this other phrase, we're going to translate the second word almost like it's a genitive, and we'll say through the middle of the fortifications, for moena. Dido still is our subject. Will function as the subject of this verb, and also the next one down here in line 76. So here in line 75, she points out the Tyrian or Carthaginian wealth. You can also translate that as resources. And the urbem paratam. This last word here, modifying urbem, is a perfect passive participle in the accusative. So on the next line, she begins to speak. And she stops. You could imply a reflexive as sort of the direct object of this if it helps. She stops herself. And in media voce, literally that would be in the middle voice. But idiomatically this has the meaning of just as she was about to speak. So she stops herself just as she was about to speak. That's how you want to understand the meaning behind that one. Now, let's see here. We've got an ablative absolute with a present active participle. And Dido is still going to be the subject of the verb to seek over here, or ask or inquire about. The same feasts is referring to the banquet from the night before, where she learned all the backstory on Aeneas, and of course was falling in love with him while he was talking. And daemons. This means sort of like not being in her right mind. Quite literally, if you want a shorter phrase, you could say out of her mind. This is referring, of course, to the passionate love she's feeling for Aeneas. She is, of course, under Cupid's spell after Venus sent him to take the place of Ascanius at the banquet the night before. So she's really not thinking clearly. So this is referring to Dido. She asks or demands interim, again, to hear, dire. Again, over here, this is another one of our words for the Trojans, Iliacos labores, the Trojan labors or troubles. So we've got quite a bit of separation between the noun and its adjective, but there we go. And she, again, interim, I'm just going to put a little kind of circle above this one. Notice the parallel word construction there, interim being repeated in both lines. So again, she hangs, and she hangs literally from the mouth of the one speaking. This refers to Aeneas. It's interesting they use the preposition ab. She hangs from this. In English, I feel like the phrasing would often be she hangs on somebody's words. But it's interesting how that's seen slightly differently through Latin. After, post on the next line. And this ubi is going to be as soon as. Usually that's translated as where, but I think as soon as will make the most sense here. So afterwards, as soon as. And for this perfect passive participle, which comes from the verb to depart, I think it translates the best if you imply a sunt and change it from a perfect passive participle into a main verb. And our implied subject is going to be Dido and Aeneas after the tour she was giving of the city. So we'd say afterwards when they departed. This is from a deponent verb. And the dark obscura is our next subject. dark luna, moon, presses the light, the lumen, and for our adverb over here at the end of line 80, you can translate this as either in turn or again, and I think it works well with the conjunction. So, and in turn or again, the falling stars persuade or urge somnos as our direct object. We'll have another subject shift here in line 82. This is going to be Dido, described in the nominative here as alone. And Myret means to grieve or mourn. And this isn't over any particular loss, but more just her general situation of having this intense love for Aeneas, but not having that really be reciprocated yet. And so just sort of her, romantic longing for him. She mourns with a ablative place where in domo vacua, in her empty home. And she lies upon the abandoned couches. Some notes suggest to understand this as the specific place where Aeneas was sitting the night before when he was telling the story that she so desires to hear over and over again. Absens on the next line is referring to Dido, still our same subject. This is a compound verb that comes from simply the verb sum, so literally to be away. And so this is a nominative present active participle referring to Dido. So she, the one being away, she hears, she both hears, we have a double que here, so we'd say she both hears and videt sees that one being absent, which is, of course, Aeneas. So she's laying on the sofas where they were hanging out at the feast the night before. It's as if she can still see him right there. Or she hears and sees Ascanius on her knee, gremio, another ablative place where, with the image, you could probably even say likeness, of his father having been captured. Again, in Book 1, there was quite a bit of emphasis on how much Ascanius looked like Aeneas to Dido. So another ablative absolute, with his image or likeness of his father, Genitoris, having been captured. So be sure to include that genitive there. For detenent, it's interesting with the commas that we have separating here, that we just simply have she holds back. We'll discuss a little bit in class some possible ways to interpret that being added there. If she was able, posset, with our complementary infinitive, and direct object infundum, meaning unspeakable, modifying amorem. Now for the next 4 lines on this page to finish up tonight's homework, we'll be getting a glimpse at how now Dido's kingdom is not being given the attention it deserves. Duties are being neglected, and consequently all work on this brand new city seems to have ground to a halt. So the guard towers having been started, or having been begun, non adsurgunt, they don't rise, meaning they're not getting any taller or any closer to completion. Nor does the young man, the youth, train or exercise his weapons. So nobody's training for war. We have a new verb down here where I would imply a just general they, the Carthaginians, as the subject here. Still picking up with the non all the way up in line 86. Or nor do they prepare the harbor or safe fortifications. Tuta going with fortifications. It's accusative neuter plural. And a dative of purpose for war. Then here we have interrupted works or unfinished works. Actually, let's phrase that a little bit differently. Let's say works hang unfinished for pendant. So we'll do that as a predicate adjective construction. Although on second thought, that is a perfect passive participle. We could render it as an adjective. That wouldn't fundamentally change the meaning. But again, to be a little bit more precise, let's actually go with the original. Works having been cut short or having been interrupted hang. And again, the idea is hang unfinished. Next subject, the ingentes minae. This is another word that can mean towers or threatening things in general, but it goes with the genitive of the walls. So these are further fortifications of some sort. So the huge towers of the walls and the machine having been made equal to the sky. I would interpret that to be some sort of scaffolding or even more likely a crane that's helping build these tall fortifications. So we have three nominative subjects, one which happens to be singular, all working with pendant, kind of that verb that literally means to hang, and in this context sort of hang unfinished, just looming there over Carthage, all due to Dido's passion and the neglect that she currently has for her kingdom. All right, take that once from the top for practice, and good luck.